I am always so excited and have so much energy for these Q&As because they bring up a lot of questions. There's always some new questions that we haven't covered in the past. So I'm Rob Walling. I'm the co-founder of MicroConf and TinySeed. And you might be wondering why a TinySeed live stream is appearing on my YouTube channel. And the reason for that is that my mission is to multiply the world's population of independent, self-sustaining startups. And all of the things that I work on are underneath that mission, or also have that. So we have TinySeed, which is one of the best B2B SaaS accelerators in the world. We funded 209 companies over the last 6 or 7 years, and we've raised just under $60 million to continue doing so. And then TinySeed also has the SaaS Institute, which is a premium coaching program for founders doing 7 or 8 figures of ARR. Then we have MicroConf, which provides education community, both online and in person. Then I've written 5 books, working on my 6th. I have Startups for the Rest of Us, the podcast. I have the YouTube channel. Pretty much everything I do circles around this ecosystem of trying to help startup founders get there faster. And we focus on SaaS, but if agentic AI becomes a thing that we should focus on their subscription revenue, yeah, we're gonna lump that in. There's other elements, of it not just being married to SaaS, but that really is what we focus on these days. And so that's why you're seeing the TinySeed live stream here on this channel. TinySeed doesn't have its own YouTube channel. It's a lot of work to get it done and maintain it and do it well. And so every 6 months or so, we open a new batch of applications for TinySeed, and we welcome about 10 to 15 new companies into the accelerator. And as we open up applications, we want to do this live Q&A here. So speaking of Q&A, if you have questions, you should post them in the YouTube chat. And secondarily, if you want to post it into LinkedIn, we will monitor that as well. But producer Ron is diligently looking at the YouTube chat as I'm speaking. So get your questions going so we have something to do here. All right. And I would love to first welcome, I have 2 panelists joining me. I have Alex McQuade, the program director of the TinySeed Accelerator. Alex, welcome to the program.
Hey, I'm Malcolm. No, thanks for having me, Rob. Everyone, I'm the program director of TinySeed. So if you end up joining this batch or a future one, you'll be working closely with me. I oversee the entire experience. And likewise, if you're applying for this round, you'll also be hearing from me at some point. So excited to be here to answer questions. This is always a super fun call where we get to jam out and share our insights. And yeah, looking forward to it.
And let me also welcome Tracy Osborn, the head of product at MicroConf and TinySeed. And folks, let's see if her camera freezes as she comes into the live stream. Tracy, you're here. It's totally working. You look great. Yay, everything's good.
Yay. Well, I'm, like Rob says, I'm the head of product of TinySeed MicroConf, which means I kind of just keep everything running across all of our products. So you'll see me at the accelerator, but if you're also part of our private community, you come to the conferences, you apply for masterminds, you'll probably see me in those spaces as well.
Amazing. And we were dealing with some technical issues. Sorry, we started a few minutes late, but everyone's audio is dialed in. We sound great. Everyone's video looks great, beautiful. I love what we're doing here. So let's roll into TinySeed. As I said, one of the best B2B SaaS accelerators in the world. We are taking applications now for the next, what is it, Alex? 6-7 days? Is that right?
Yeah, 6 days through Tuesday, February 17th.
Perfect.
And that's our spring US Eastern time.
That's our spring 2026 batch. And as I said, we back usually 10 to 15 companies each time. It varies depending on the quality of the applications. We get many hundreds of applications and we sift it down. It looks like questions are pouring in, which is great. Thanks for doing that. We will get to those in just a second. Before we do that, I want to ask Alex to review some of the aspects of our program, give folks an intro to it, maybe answer some of those questions in advance.
Yeah, so I think I'll hit a few questions people are probably wondering, but first thing to note is that TinySeed now operates as one global batch. So wherever you're from, you are welcome to join this batch. We accept applications from any country, and I'll repeat that again, any country. The stipulation there is that we do need you to be incorporated as a US Delaware C Corp. So if you're not currently a US C Corp, don't worry, you can still apply. There's no need to do anything right now. If we end up moving forward with you, we'll have a process where we can help you through that reincorporation. It's not too tricky. It's a pretty common process for a lot of companies. So there's a lot of, it's a pretty smooth process. The other thing I want to mention is that because we are a global accelerator, we have a set time for our mentor and program calls in general that we stick to try to make sure that it is accessible to as many folks as possible across the world. That time is 11 a.m. US Eastern time, which is also 4 p.m. London. So that's the overlap where we found most people are able to attend calls, but even if you're not able to join a call, we always record everything. So no matter where you are, you'll have access to the education we'll be working through. And then the final thing I wanted to share is that this batch, so every batch has a kickoff retreat, which is a huge part of the program. It's one of my favorite parts personally. And this kickoff retreat for the spring 2026 batch will be in New York City. So super looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yep. And Tracy, you brought up, do you have to be a Delaware C Corp or just any state in the US C Corp? And it is any state. So it's just a C Corp. And folks might ask, why do you do that? And we can go into it if you want. We used to fund LLCs and other entity types. And let's just say it's very expensive. It's very time consuming. And we actually saw the C Corps perform better, like across our data set. They grow faster. There's something about it. So in addition, if you ever want to raise additional funding or you want to go to exit, it's usually, not always, in your best interest to be a C Corp. So we have standardized on that. Tracy, you want to give folks an idea of some other aspects of the program?
Yeah, so there's a few aspects of the program that tie into the microconf side of things. So first off, as for anyone who gets into the accelerator batch, we also give them a free ticket and accommodation to one of our future microconfs in that year, or in the upcoming year. So we have two microconfs that are happening this year. We have microconf Portland, that's going to be in April, and then we are actually really excited for our European location. It's going to be our first time ever in Iceland, in Reykjavik. And if you've been there and you've seen the Harpa Conference Center, you know how awesome our venue is going to be. So, at those events, we also have a lot of TinySeed alumni that come. So they meet folks in the new batch get to meet the old batch. They get to meet the team. We have a TinySeed dinner that we run at those microconfs. So we have a lot of opportunities beyond the kickoff retreat for folks in the new accelerator batch to meet up with the rest of our community.
It's going to be so much fun. I love the TinySeed kickoffs are some of my favorite events of the year. There's just a lot of energy and welcoming folks in and getting to meet them. It's really cool.
Our community is the best.
It's really the best. It is by far literally the best alumni or community that I've ever been a part of is our TinySeed Slack and the in-person events. And if you're watching this and you want to hear what it's like to go through TinySeed from a founder's perspective, you can check out TinySeed Tales, which is a podcast series that I've recorded 5 seasons of. And each season, I interview a single TinySeed founder over the course of about a year. And I do like 6 to 8 interviews, spread out through that year. And then we edit that down into 6 or 8 20-minute podcast episodes. And so you get to see how the whole year unfolds. And it's all compacted. It's great. So I've done 5 seasons of that. You can go to tinyseedtales.com if you want to see those episodes. And the most recent season, 5, I followed Harris Kenny, who is the founder of Outbound Sync, and he crossed $500,000 of ARR during the course of our season. It was just a great season and a fun ride, and he's continued to grow since then. So tinyseedtales.com if you want to listen to that. And there's also a secret coaching call that we recorded, not realizing we were going to release it, but he had a bunch of asks for me, and it's completely unscripted and not performative. It's not a podcast episode where I intro it. We hit record and I give him a bunch of advice. He was considering raising funding and we just talk through it. So if you want to see what it feels like or hear what it feels like to really be, to get advice as a TinySeed founder, head to tinyseed.com/bonus. And I believe you enter your email there and then you can download that. So with that in mind, we're going to get to questions in just a second, but Alex, can you talk about how the application process works and some important dates that people should keep in mind?
Yes. So there's 3 stages that you should keep in mind when going through the application. And I'm going to mention dates now. Specifically, so we ask that you try to keep these dates open If you end up moving forward, we're going to need to follow up with you, possibly schedule an interview. So try to save these dates so that we can keep moving forward with you. So the first stage is obviously where we are now, the actual application. Applications are already open, and they are open through Tuesday, February 17th, closing down at midnight US Eastern Time. The second stage would be some folks will move on to an async interview. So we'll have a short follow-up async interview. We'll have some questions to learn a little bit more about your company, dig it a bit, and see if you're a good fit for the program. That will be held between February 23rd and 27th. And then the final round for some folks will be moving on to an interview with our full team. So that's a live call where all four of us are on there. We're chatting about your business, and we're kind of filling in the holes, asking our last questions, chatting with you, answering your questions. And that will be, all of those will be held between March 9th and 13th. So hold those dates for sure. The last thing I want to mention before we dive into questions is if when you are ready to apply, because hopefully you are, go to tinyseed.com/apply. If you're wanting to figure out, just read a little bit more about the program, hopefully we'll cover everything on the call today, but if you want to read more, go to tinyseed.com/program. And then the last thing I want to hit on is just a note that we try really hard to make sure that applications are low friction, that they're not hard, that they don't take much time. In general, I see most people are able to finish their applications in about 10 to 15 minutes as long as they know their numbers. So it's really not a big pull. You should be able to finish it without a lot of time set aside. We try to make it easy so that it's not a hassle for you.
Yeah, amazing. We're going to dive into questions right now, but I want to answer two questions that we're going to get. I just guarantee. We're going to get questions like
times.
I'm yeah,
seen the patterns.
I think a dozen, 12 to 14 of these. Yeah. If so I have a SaaS and it like sells to government and it's at a few thousand MRR, should I apply? And the answer is almost always yes, you should apply. If you're in doubt, fill it out. If you're in doubt, apply. We will ask you clarifying questions. We're not robots. We're not AI. And so usually that's the right answer. We have a question coming up about pre-revenue. So $500 of MRR and up is what we tend to look at. That is our recommendation for applying. So with that, let's dive into the first question from Force of Habit Q. Can you please clarify the requirement to reincorporate as a Delaware C Corp? UK based here, not 100% comfortable with how the US is going lately. So I'm not sure if they are asking why we are doing it or whether we have to. The answer is you do have to. We have raised a bunch of funding, and all of our investors understand that we can only fund Delaware C Corps.
Yep.
So I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah. Two is sometimes people that aren't familiar with reincorporation worry about whether this means you need to move to the US or be located in the US. And the answer to that is no. You can reincorporate. So in this case, I believe the founder is based in the UK. You'll be able to reincorporate and still live in the UK. You'll find an accountant who will help you with your books in the US, but otherwise your life and operations stay the same.
Right. And obviously the US is doing what the US does every now and then. I haven't heard of, if anything, it's a pro-business administration currently, right? It's very pro-business. They're trying to reduce business taxes and reduce red tape for what it's worth. So I understand the sentiment, but I'm not sure it's in line with the reality of what's happening here.
Yeah, and I want to pop in here and say that there's ignoring U.S. politics, there's a lot of advantages to, being, even if you're not in the U.S., to having a US C Corp. From what I understand, Rob, you probably can talk a little bit more about this, but in terms of like, if you decide to raise money later, which, come to us, you don't have to raise money, but I want to say like there's a good chunk of TinySeed founders who then realize that there is an opportunity to raise money. They want to go on the venture path. And so the C Corp can really help with that process. And then also when you want to sell. So it maximizes your selling opportunities when you're already a US incorporation as compared to other incorporations. And so there's some advantages as well. Even if you don't get into TinySeed, you might want to look into what that would mean in terms of like determining your future paths of your company. It might be still a good thing for you to do.
Yep. And as Tracy said, if you're going to raise money, if you're going to go to exit, generally being a Delaware C Corp is helpful. Next question is from Real World Music Theory. 2 questions. Can existing SaaS participate? I'm going to interpret that as I have a SaaS app that is live and making money. Can I apply? The answer is absolutely yes. That is the only kind of SaaS we fund from about 500 MRR and up. Our sweet spot is 1 to 2,000 MRR on the low end usually, but we have funded below that. Up to about 40-ish, 45,000 a month is usually the top end of folks who get into the program. And then their next question is, which stage does a product have to be in? So honestly, I care less about the product and I care more about traction, some revenue. I mean, the product should be launched and in the wild, right? But look, if you had an early access where it's like not publicly available for people to sign up, but you had 5 customers each paying you $1,000 a month and some track record, yeah, great. Come on in, right? Revenue and growth are like the leading causes of traction. No, they're the leading indicators of traction. Anything to add, Alex?
I think you nailed it. Yeah, the answer is revenue producing, and then there's a wide variety of what that is in between.
And I would say B2B is our sweet spot. We don't invest in B2C. And then, of course, there's like the things in between, B2 prosumer, maybe, I don't know, like how strict we are on that. But like at B2B, SaaS is what we invest in, the people in.
Right. And that's because that's what we're experts in.
Yeah.
But like, I can't give you advice on B2C because I just don't. I've had one like 15 years ago and it was awful for me. It's just not we don't have all the mentors are set up to help B2B, all of our programming, the playbooks, everyone around you will be B2B. So if you're B2C, Godspeed, but TinySeed is just isn't the fit for you.
Yeah.
From Mars, yeah. It's interesting spelling. What percentage of your applicants are pre-revenue and how many get in? So I'll say we have fewer pre-revenue now than we used to because we tell people if you're pre-revenue, maybe don't apply. Like, because we're very, very unlikely to fund you. I think we funded 3 pre-revenue out of 209 companies, and those were all in the first batch. And the reason we stopped was most of those took 18 to 36 months to get to revenue. And it's just, that's not the business we're in, So get some traction. And get in. So at this point, how many pre-revenue get in? Basically 0.
Yeah, basically the challenges that you're facing when you're pre-revenue are not challenges that we cover in our program. We cover like how to, you have an existing platform of users and how to scale that or find new users, but you need to have that like initial set of customers. And so when you're pre-revenue, there's gonna be a lot of time you're gonna be spending trying to get to revenue and not being able to take advantage of the program. So this is like something that we wanted to enforce so that folks coming into the program, you might have a really great idea, but you won't get anything out of the program if you're pre-revenue.
Just a fun fact on that second half of that question, how many get in? We sometimes get asked that question more broadly. And I think, Rob, you recently calculated that our acceptance rate is more competitive or harder to get in than Harvard, right?
Yeah. Harvard's 3.5%, I believe. And we are less than that, somewhere in the 2s. And so, but that's not pre-revenue. That's everybody that applies, of all the applicants. That's the percentage that get in.
Yeah. And we have a cap essentially on our ends to how many people we can approve. So it doesn't, if you didn't make it in, it doesn't mean that you have a bad idea. It might just mean that, some other folks had more traction. They fit TinySeed a little bit better. We want to see more traction on your end perhaps. So, we're limited by the amount of folks we can apply or who we can accept. We have a lot more people who apply than what we can bring in. So if you get rejected, don't take it as a rejection of your idea of what you're working on. Just keep on doing it and also apply again when you have more traction. We love to see reapplications.
Many founders that we've accepted have applied 2, 3, and 4 times. So it's very common. Aha Cop asks, what does the typical week, the part of the fun of this thing is me trying to figure out people's username, trying to read them. What does the typical week look like as it relates to TinySeed for a new cohort member? Alex McQuade. Oh, this is a perfect question for you.
Teeing me up, Aha Cop. So a typical week, what you can count on in general in terms of time commitment is about 1 call per week, which is usually about an hour per call. So 1 hour per week. What that's going to look like is every other week, you're going to have a batch call. So in the first part of the program, we're going to be working through our playbooks. We have playbook calls where we focus on the most foundational topics that any SaaS founder needs to master to be successful. So that includes marketing, sales, hiring, M&A, funnels, and a few others. We work through those. We have presentations, and then we have group calls where you're able to ask questions, get answers from Rob, Einar, and a few of our mentors. But yeah, those calls are an hour long. That's a batch call. Once we finish that, we move on to our mentor calls. Same structure, but I am getting you connected with different mentors in our network where you're able to ask questions, get answers. And so these batch-wide calls are happening every other week. On the weeks where you don't have a batch call, you are going to be meeting with your mastermind. So a mastermind is a small group of founders within your batch. You can kind of think of them like an extended group of co-founders. You'll meet with them every other week where you'll be sharing what you're working on, the challenges you're facing, and you'll be helping each other move forward. So that's basically the commitment. And then in terms of in between that, it's really a choose your own venture. So you can request one-on-one mentor calls. You can jump on the TinySeed Slack and engage with the other founders. There's a lot more to be doing. You can spend plenty of time getting knowledge and taking advantage of the TinySeed resources. But in terms of the program time, it's about a call per week.
Next question from Douglas Allen. What's the funding amount and how much of the company are you asking for? Alex?
Yeah, this is another easy one. So we are 120,000 to 220,000 in exchange for 10 to 12%. And I know this question is going to come up at some point. What is that? How do I know where I'm going to fall in there? What does that look like? It is on a company by company basis. So after we get through the entire interview process, we sit down and we look at a lot of different factors. So there's not a clean answer on like, oh, if you're this, you're gonna get this. We're looking at, of course, your MRR, but also your growth, your key metrics like your churn, your ARPU, your risks, your strengths, your founders, what you've done, what we see as potential, and we kind of put it all together to come up with that offer.
Nevi0030 asks, I have only one client paying $1,000 a month for my SaaS, but a total addressable market of around 400 potential clients in North America. I haven't spent time selling, but I'm ready to get started. Thoughts? Well, my thoughts are get started selling. That's what you should do. If you're asking if you should apply, yes, if in doubt, fill it out. And a question if you get to interview will be your TAM is too small to really do anything. I mean, you would have to capture the whole market, get to 4 million. Or no, I guess that the 400 times 1,000, yeah, that would be 400,000 a month. So that would be a $5 million TAM, but you'd have to capture the whole market to do that. So then we'd say, we have funded companies with small TAMs. And always the question is, how are you going to expand that as you get traction? You know, is this a single vertical? You can go to an adjacent one. If it's horizontal, can you raise prices? Or, that'll be a question on my mind for sure.
Yeah, we love, there's so many people out there who are building like really amazing bootstrap businesses, but there's some bootstrap businesses that don't make sense for investment. And so if you wanted to keep your company small, you didn't want to break out of that total addressable market, you just wanted to stay within that market, TinySeed might not be the right place for you. Might be a better thing for you to do is just like purely bootstrap and like own 100% of your company. But to be investable, to be in a place where you can be invested in by TinySeed, we would want to know that you have bigger ambitions than that.
Yeah, and typically I say we want to fund founders that want to get to 7 or 8 figures in annual recurring revenue and sell for, if you decide to sell, for at least 10 million. If you want to take an offer for 3 or 4 million, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make our fund viable. We can't keep raising future funds if you want to sell for a few $1 million. Kermata Social asks, for a Delaware C Corp, would we have to move accountants? And my answer is, you'd have to ask your accountant. I don't know. It depends on, do they work with Delaware C Corps, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're not in the US, it's it's still possible, but it's probably unlikely that they do. But without more information, I don't know that we can ask you. I would ask your accountant.
Yeah, there's probably like most countries, if you're a Delaware C, well, I would say if you're out of the country, I was thinking about this from our earlier question. If you're not in the US, there's a lot of accountants that probably have worked in this situation. I say this as a US citizen that lives in Canada, and not quite the same thing, but I had to find an accountant that could file for both of those things. And so there could be a possibility a local accountant that has the experience in those areas. Yeah, whether you're in the US or not, definitely ask your accountant.
All-Star Agency 1570 asks, we are a UK Limited who have received some grant funding. If we were to reincorporate as a US C Corp, we would have to pay grants back. Is there an option to keep the Limited as a subsidiary of the C Corp? Alex McQuade.
Yes. So I'm going to preface this answer with, what's the Reddit phrase? I am not a lawyer. So do check with your own legal team on this. But what you'll want to look into is what we call a Delaware flip. It's probably the most common form of reincorporation for foreign entities that are looking to form a Delaware C Corp. And how that basically works is that you create the Delaware C Corp, your previous entity. So I think in this case, yeah, the UK limited company becomes a subsidiary of the C Corp. The C Corp essentially becomes the parent company that owns the previous entity. I don't have an answer for you on how that would work with your grants or if that would lose your eligibility. I would highly recommend chatting with a lawyer and making sure that, that structure would still keep you in compliance. But the phrase you're going to look up when you're doing your research is a Delaware flip.
We still have time for more questions. We have about 5 or 6 left, but if you have them, please pipe them in. Ty Thomas Ifs asks, is an app in the PropTech space, which I'm assuming is property tech, not propeller-driven airplanes, property tech space that serves B2B and B2C. Is it sufficient? Or does our B2C involvement get frowned upon? B2B is the main driver. Who wants to take this? Jump in.
Alex can go.
No, you take it. I took the last one.
Okay. All right. Yes, that if B2B is the main driver, that's great. There's a lot of companies we work with that have a B2C side of things. And if you have a B2C app and you don't have a B2B side, it's highly likely you're gonna have to build it at some point because the economics are just so much easier on B2B, which is one of the many reasons why we focus on it. So yes, if your B2B is the main driver of the app, but you do have B2C, definitely apply. There are places in the application where you can specify or clarify where your MRR is coming from and to go into detail about what the split is between the two areas. If you have service revenue, if you want to just clarify where that revenue is coming in, there's areas in the application you can put that in.
Yeah, we have TinySeed companies with, as you said, both B2B and B2C. Next couple questions are from Alt with Lay Laman and Michael Kilo. When is your next application window this year? And when is the next batch? I'm assuming they're asking when it starts. You want to give them the dates again, Alex?
Yeah, so our next batch is going to be in the fall. So we run 2 batches per year.
I think
it's always going to be.
Oh, they're asking. You think they're asking for the next one after this?
I would think so. That's how I read it.
Yeah. Okay. Because this one runs from May. Yeah, starts May 1, the batch, and it goes for a year, and then the next one is fall. Keep going, Alex. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So with you, for some reason, I don't know, your pre-revenue, it's not the right time for you to apply now. Don't worry. We're going to reopen applications in the fall. We always do spring and fall. So fall applications are most likely it's going to open in the beginning of September, most likely the first week of September. But what I'll say is, if you aren't already, add your email to our list where we send notifications on the next application round opening. That's at tinyseed.com/emails, and we'll send notifications a few weeks leading up so that you're aware, you don't miss the window. And the batch itself, so applications will start beginning of September. The batch will start at the beginning of October and run through the year. So no worries if this batch doesn't make sense. We'll be here. Oh, sorry. You're right. I don't know why I said October.
Not October, November.
I'm saying a lot of months here. Yeah. No. All right. Alexander asks, how often do companies pursue VC rounds after the program versus bootstrapping further? And I actually want to expand on this question. It's not VC versus bootstrapping. It's VC versus any other non-VC additional funding, which is the most common, and bootstrapping. right? You can go raise angel rounds. Some people raise friends and family. Some people raise from the TinySeed syndicate. And if you don't mind, I'll take this one. So over our first, I believe it was 3 years, it was almost 25% of TinySeed companies raised additional funding. And very little of that was venture. It was like 1 or 2 companies. But the other, however many dozens, were raising, as I said, from these alternate funding sources. Then 2021 happened, where as the market started to crash, funding became more expensive, harder to get. And so to date, of our 209 companies, I believe the number is just shy of 10%, just below 10%. It's like 8, 9, 10%, somewhere in there, of TinySeed companies that have raised additional funding after the program, or during the program for that matter. But the thing to keep in mind is TinySeed allows you to do either. We don't push you to do either. It's what's right for the business. It's what's right for you. The key to TinySeed is optionality, right? We're one of the best communities in the world for B2B SaaS, provide you the right amount of funding, the advice, the mentorship, but also we give you optionality. And that's something that most other programs and most other, certainly venture capitalists, do not offer you. Once you're on the venture track, you're on the venture track. Rhythm Alert asks, is it compulsory to have a team to apply or not? Alex, Tracy, what do you think?
No, it is not. And in fact, we have a blog post that we talk a little bit about this, but I'll go ahead and TLDR it. TinySeed, another area where TinySeed is unique is that unlike a lot of accelerators and investors who have, I guess you'd say, a preference towards there being a founding team of at least 2 or more founders, in general, TinySeed does not have that. We view solo founders equally. I guess not equally. Each outcome has its pros and cons, but we do not discriminate against solo founders. We have plenty of solo founders in TinySeed in each batch. It's just a different approach. So, I mean, co-founders have their strengths, 2 people obviously, but they have their weaknesses. There's a risk of the co-founders ending up in a fight and kind of screwing over the company, one of the co-founders leaving. And similarly, solo founders have their own risks, but we have plenty of really successful solo founders in TinySeed, and we don't discriminate on that.
I think that's like where TinySeed really shines, is because we have such a focus on community. And when you're a bootstrap solo founder, which, you know, I have a lot of, that's what I was back in the day before TinySeed. It's lonely. It sucks when you don't have other people to run by decisions and talk to other founders. And it gives you, you know, kind of a community of folks that can take the place of what a co-founder can do in terms of like just sharing information and I don't know, having a easier time of things because you're not feeling so alone.
Yeah. In fact, going back to the masterminds, that's another part. I think I said earlier, masterminds are like a extended group of co-founders. So if you are a solo founder, that's something to look forward to in the program. You'll be in that small group where you'll be able to pull from other founders and share the journey.
And they asked a follow-up question about the minimum size company to apply. And so headcount, you can just be you. We have single solo founders with no employees that can apply. If you're wondering about revenue, it's $500 of MRR is the minimum bar to apply. Michael Kehoe asks, do you have any recommendations for bootstrapping founders looking for mentoring assistance that are not looking for funding? Tracy, I'm going to pass this one to you.
I got excited. I was like, this is for me, being that I work across all the other areas of our business. So we have like the TinySeed Accelerator is where we fund founders, but overall as an organization, all the folks in the organization are kind of the thing that we want to do is just enable bootstrap founders to go farther, faster, find their community, have a better time of it. And so we have a few different other areas that are not related to, other than the accelerator. First off, within TinySeed, we have a different program called the SaaS Institute. SaaS Institute is essentially because TinySeed Accelerator was working really well, but you do have, you get funded and you do, we then own a part of your business. And there's a lot of folks who came in being like, hey, I heard about the accelerator. I heard how great it was in terms of community and your mentors and how you run the program, but I'm already at $1 million ARR. There's no way I'm going to give you 10% of your company, which I totally understand. So we created a premium coaching solution that is very similar to the accelerator without the investment side of things. That is limited to million plus ARR founders, and I'm blurry. That's interesting. I'll just keep talking. And that is a monthly fee. Then on the MicroConf side of things, that is our more global or more like open community. We have conferences. So like I said earlier, we have Portland coming up in April, and we have Reykjavik happening in September. That's an area for Bootstrap founder. We want to like have a conference, a place where people can gather, learn from our stage speakers, go on excursions with other people, find other people in the community, or not necessarily just TinySeed. The global MicroConf community is also amazing, really great, friendly, ambitious people. And within MicroConf, we have a few different programs. Oh, look, I froze. Yeah, it doesn't like me talking this much. MicroConf has a few other programs. We have a private community that starts at about $50 a month. So if you wanted to just chat with other founders in this private community, we vet everybody. There's an application. We have our own mastermind matching within MicroConf, so you can get matched with other founders into a small mastermind. So if TinySeed doesn't work out for you, we love masterminds. You can jump onto the MicroConf side of things. And is there anything else in MicroConf that I'm missing? I think that's it. Private community, conferences, mastermind matching, and then we have our coaching solution. So a whole suite of places for you to find to connect with other Bootstrap founders.
Nailed it. Juan Esteban Garcia Estrada asks, I have an LLC and I'm currently in the process of obtaining a U.S. investment visa. If we work together, I won't be able to change the entity structure until the visa process is complete. Should I wait for the next application round, or can I apply now? It's a B2B SaaS doing $60,000 of MRR. Alex, what do you think?
Juan, I think you should apply. And I'm going to give a few thoughts on this. First, well, just to go back, when in doubt, fill it out. But there's a few things here. I do want to clarify, we would need you still, of course, to be a US C Corp by the time we invest. So that wouldn't change. But it sounds like there's a few conditions here. It sounds like this could go through before the time that we finish the investment process. I'd also just want to have a chat with you. You know, I think our legal team could probably chat and see if this is true, if there's a way we can move forward the incorporation despite the visa process. And at the very worse, if for some reason you weren't able to move forward by the time we were wrapping up the batch, it's good to talk now. We can start the conversation. I think this holds true for a lot of folks. It's great to have the conversation now. And if it didn't work out, we can pick up the conversation next batch. But it's always better to get on the radar now, to start having the conversation so we can learn about you and kind of move forward from there. We would never hold it against you if we had to wait until the next batch, assuming you moved forward.
Laman Barrow asks, have you ever funded a startup from Africa? Have we, Alex?
No, we have not, but
we've
I
definitely
would
talked to folks, and I believe
Yeah.
even like made offers to folks.
Yeah, that's what I was
in
going to
Africa.
say. I think there was some reason why they couldn't take our offer. Because I remember we were celebrating internally that we're really excited about investing in the African continent. It's definitely something we want to do. But you know, there's a lot of, sometimes like things happen like that.
I think it's the main point. We would love to.
Yeah.
So please do apply. And yeah, I think that's the last. I think that is the only continent, not including Antarctica, that we have.
Can you imagine?
If you are in Antarctica,
Yeah.
please apply.
You're up on a research station up there. Vibe code. All right. Anwar asks, how close should we be to break even and or paying dividends? And by when do selected companies usually know which path to take? Acquisition, or so a sale, or run it profitably? Close to break even or dividends doesn't matter. We care about traction. We're looking down the line. I mean, 3, 5, 7 years from now, if you're doing amazing, that's what we're looking at. So we don't need dividends now. And break even doesn't matter. If you're burning a tremendous amount of money, it's like, I have $50,000 in the bank and I'm burning $20,000 a month. It's like, well, this is not really a viable business unless you turn something around. We're unlikely to invest so that you can, kind of burn through that cash. But in general, profitability for us, especially at the early stage you are, just doesn't really matter. And that's not what we're looking for, because you can always optimize for that later if you build a great business. And a great business means building something amazing for your customers, finding those channels. So it's growth is the biggest measure. Profitability, especially with SaaS, can be optimized later. And the second question is, when do companies usually know which choice to take, sale or profit? Totally. I mean, it just totally depends. There's no way to answer that. They know it when they know it. And what happens to a lot of folks, I'll be honest. I mean, I say this thing on my podcast, like everyone sells. Everyone sells. We don't force you to sell. We don't push you to sell. But just in general, not within TinySeed, in the SaaS world, everyone sells because eventually you either get bored of it or you've built something that's so valuable that you want to take cash off the table. And so when you build a business doing 2 million a year ARR and you can maybe eke out 500 grand, 700 grand, 800 grand a year, and someone comes and offers you 10 or 12 million in cash for long-term cap gains on that, like most founders just take that, right? So again, it's not that I'm pushing you to do that, but that's often the pattern we see is folks get to a few million and it's hard, it's a hard journey, and they sometimes start to burn out, and then they realize, oh, I could basically never work again if I were to sell this. And so it depends on, the question of when is like whenever they are able to answer that question. Next question is from Dmitry Churchenko. And Dmitry asks, if a company is in an SMB, isn't small, medium-sized business? SMB is such a funny term. Small, medium, SMB niche. How do you evaluate whether the target market size is big enough, and what's a convincing way to estimate it? And I'll preface it by saying we don't really care that much about the target market, but we do ask for it, an estimate of it in the application. So I appreciate you asking. I shouldn't say we don't care about it. It's that even a TAM of total addressable market of like 20 million, which is venture capitalists would just scoff at. It was fine for us because all you got to do is take 10% of the market, or 20 or 30 or, whatever it is. Like you don't need that much of it. So these very small markets are actually pretty decent fits for TinySeed. Alex, what else? What did I miss?
Well, I was going to say, you actually hit it on earlier, but I would just re-highlight that we're looking for companies that we think have the potential to reach $10 million ARR. So you can kind of work backwards from there. How big is your market? What does your deal size look like? What's your ARPU like? And then, like you said, what percentage of the market do you think you can get? And if that formula convincingly can reach those numbers, then yeah, it's a target big enough.
Sam Couch asks, what about solo founders not full-time on the product? And I think he's asking, do you fund solo founders that are not full-time on the product? Tracy, do we do that?
I'm frozen again. How fun. Yes, we do. However, when we want to, by the time that the accelerator starts, we want you to be full-time and to be focused on the company or the product that we invested in. So you can be part-time coming in, and that a lot of folks will be part-time and use the money that we give you to help you go full-time, to help, because a lot of times, you have families, you have expenses, you have all these kind of things happening. So that's part of that reason of that investment, is to allow you to go all in and focus on your business. And so that's one of the things that we really require at TinySeed. We want you to be all in and excited about working on your business. That also means no major side projects, really work on the business that we invested in. And we want to see that I said it already a few times, but we want to see that you're all in on that. So you can apply as part-time, but we will be asking if you are going to go full-time as with the accelerator. And if you say you're not going to go full-time, it's going to probably won't be able to invest in you.
Focus. Focus. We have seen it over and over. I mean, I've seen it throughout my 20-year career working with entrepreneurs, is the ones who focus. The ones who don't focus are the ones who just don't get anywhere. And then the ones who focus at least have a good chance of success. Douglas Allen asks, what are your top 5 success stories and how many were bootstrapped solo founders?
Quite a few. So many.
Yeah. Go.
Oh, like I said, we all can shoot. We don't know we want to hit 5, but
let's each share one.
Mine comes to mind is Marty of JBoard, bootstrap solo founder, joined TinySeed, the first EMEA batch in 2022. He has a thread that he actually put on Twitter that we sent out via email. So I know he doesn't mind us sharing this, but basically started at a relatively low MRR. He is a guy who just executed. He absolutely soaked up the TinySeed resources, knowledge, and just put his head down and executed. Reached 7-figure AR range and is just growing like a madman still today. And he's kind of a great example of the type of founder that we look for, in that somebody who is action oriented, who is going to take advantage of the knowledge that we have to share. I always like to say that TinySeed, we can share everything we have with you. We can't do it for you. And the founders who can move quickly on the advice are the ones who tend to see these types of results.
I'm going to jump in and say two really quickly, because both of them have articles on the TinySeed blog. So if you go to tinyseed.com/latest, one of them is Jonathan Build a Prime. He was in our 2020 batch. He hasn't exited, but he's raised, I want to say he's at Series A at this point. So he's one of the founders that decided to raise extra money, but it's been really amazing to see how he's grown since 2020, and I think he's done an amazing job. So you can read more about some of his successes on our blog. The second one that's on our blog is also as a case study. Kieran of, oh gosh, it's Flat Plan, right?
Flat Plan.
Okay, had a panic. Yeah, exactly. So Kieran of Flat Plan, we did a case study on him. So that is linked in the program page, and I want to say there's also a link in the blog page, so you can read about how we worked with Kieran, and kind of the support he got from TinySeed in growing Flat Plan.
And then I'll say Iran Galperin, who he's been on my podcast, but single founder, built a great business, and the top line number mentioned is $32.5 million exit, but as he says, it was only a partial exit. He actually rolled equity. So the valuation of his bootstrap SaaS that was doing, I don't remember, 30 or 40 grand a month when he applied, like he had it's not just life changing, it's like generational wealth generating. So we have many more than that. And we have both solo founders, we have two founders, we have 3 founders success stories. There's been a lot. I've mentioned on Twitter, I won't mention it here, but the TinySeed millionaire rate, you can go see my pinned tweet, x.com/Rob Walling, just to see. It's an older tweet, but if you want to hear about Iran Galperin, episode 728 of Startups for the Rest of Us, bootstrapping Gem Desk to a more than $32.5 million exit. Greg Mark Lamp asks, you said your target exit is 10 million. So that's not our target exit. That is basically my minimum. If you come to tell me, hey, I want to sell for 7, I'd just be like, I don't think we're a fit. So 10 is the minimum. And frankly, it's like 10 to 100, right? So we've had exits in mid 8 figures, and that's amazing. That's really my target, because that does really well for us. So just to be clear, it's not like, 10 is a huge win for us. It's not, but it is, something, it is at least not a loss for us. How about that?
Yeah, we want to continue to run TinySeed, and so it's not like we're trying to be greedy. It's because we need to bring success to the LPs that invest in us, so that we can continue to raise more funds, like something we said earlier. So
it's how fund economics work.
Mm-hmm.
At a $8 billion exit, like we return whatever it is, a 4x or a 5x, and that just isn't no one wants that. You can just go ahead and buy a S&P 500, if you're going to average that out across all your companies. So anyways, you said your target exit is 10 million. Backing into that, what does that mean in terms of revenue and growth need to be for that? I realize it's nuanced but any guideline would be helpful. And I'll just answer this really quickly. So I'll tell you, SaaS founders so first you need to get to 7 figures, 1 or 2 million at least, usually around 2 million. The kind of lowest end I've seen for a SaaS exit with a flat company, it was 0.5x ARR. Not the total lowest, it can go lower than that, but and the highest I've seen, I think the highest offer I saw was 25x ARR. The founder turned it down. Highest closed exit, I think, was 15 or 20x. But that's not that helpful, right? It's too big of a range. The most common, if we look at it as a bell curve, is a 4 to 8x ARR. But you have to be growing 50 to 100% a year to get that. So it depends on all this stuff, right? It depends. It's an auction. It's a process of a bunch of people making an offer. So if you're doing 2 million a year, can you sell for 10 million? Probably. If you're doing 3 million a year, I mean, if you're flat, no, but if you're growing, very, very likely. So also Greg Mark Lamp asks, is the funding dilutive? It is. Yes, we buy equity. Can it be secondary? And so folks who aren't familiar with, that's where the founder sells shares and puts money into their pocket. And no, it cannot be. The reason is we invest a relatively small amount, 120 to 220,000. Like if we gave you 220 and you took 100 off the table, like this is for growth. We're investing in the future value of your business. That's why we're valuing it so much higher than you could liquidate it for today. Most TinySeed companies we invest in are in this $1 to $2.5 million valuation. If you went to sell the company today, most of these companies would sell for $50,000 or $50,000 to $500,000, say. Kind of making numbers up as we go, but that's a given range. So why do we invest at something that we're overpaying for, right? Well, it's because we're investing in your future growth. And if you take money off the table into your own pocket, that's not future growth. That's for you to, go buy a Maserati or something. I'm just kidding. You can't afford a Maserati for that. But, the idea is that we are investing in future growth, and that's why the whole program is around. Lightning round, 4 minutes, 4 questions. Think we can do this, team?
We can do it.
Force of Habit asks, if for some reason a founder wants to buy back the equity at a later point rather than exit, maybe the business fails or doesn't reach 5-10 million exit, what would happen? Is there a minimum return, etc.? Can I just quickly answer this? We're not one of the funds that allows you to buy back, or I shouldn't say that allows. We've never had a founder buy back their equity. And so I guess if we got there at some point, we would have a conversation, but it's not really how we're set up. That's not the desired outcome. So the answer is it depends. I'm not quite sure just because we haven't had to do that. All-Star Agency 1570. When does the accelerator start? How many months after the applications close? Alex.
May 1st. If you go all the way through interviews wrap up the second week of March. So what is that, about 6 weeks after applications end?
Caitlin MMD asks, curious, at what stage does TinySeed funding create the most leverage for a SaaS business? I mean, we've funded companies all the way from 500 MRR up to 100,000 of MRR. I think our content and our advice is the most effective once you have at least weak product market fit. So there's a bunch of stages of product market fit. It's not a binary. If you have no product market fit and you're flailing around, we can try to help you, but you kind of have to get there, But the moment you built something that customers want, they're starting to pay for it, maybe have a marketing channel that's kind of working and you're selling and you're growing a little bit, our content will really help you escalate that and reach escape velocity. Tracy, did I miss anything on that?
I think that's it.
Anwar asks, how flexible are you on the term sheet, liquidation preference, Pro-Rata, Pari Passu, distribution instead of greater of protection, for example? That's a lot. But Alex, I think let's say, how flexible are you on the term sheet? Maybe
Not very. In general, our term sheets are locked in. We invest in so many companies that it's not economically feasible for us to be negotiating with every term sheet that comes in. That's pretty standard for an accelerator program.
Anwar asked another question. It's great. Excuse me. I have water here. All right. Anwar asks, it's great that you're pushing for optionality. I love that instead of the overly glorified VC route. Why do you think you're still able to run TinySeed while others like Indie VC or ComFund haven't worked?
Well, Indie's back. So
Indie's back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a big question. I mean, it's a big question. Yeah. Number one, and I don't want to compare to Indie or Com, right? Let's just say, why has TinySeed worked is the real question. And I know we're in a lightning round, but TinySeed worked, number one, because it started with a good reputation because it came from me and from Microconf. So instantly it was given benefit of the doubt. Then we delivered on the promises of that. We offered fun. We really worked hard. It was very hard to find terms that founders would take. And A&R and I went through a bunch of iterations and we locked in on very simple equity. It's a fair deal. And we then had an audience to be able to raise funds. It's hard to raise funding. It is a two-sided marketplace. And unless you have that traction, and build a mentor network that is one of the best in the world for B2B SaaS. That is, I think, and the community came after that, but yeah.
Yeah. Go to tinyseed.com/thesis and you can read a little bit about how we position the company to our investors. And that tells you about how we are able to keep going.
OB Hitting 3 asks, will you work with a 100% startup ready to start from scratch?
Gotta have revenue.
Yeah, gotta have
Unfortunately not. But reapply once you hit that 500 MRR threshold.
And our last question for today, before we wrap, is Justin 24est asks, how does the team think about a recent pivot causing a big spike in growth, but not around long enough to understand what churn will be? Is this seen as risky versus steady low churn? Alex, what do you think?
I think we'd view it as positive. We'd need more context. Yeah, I mean, there'd be questions, like you said, not understanding what the churn is, but that's something we would probably cover in the interview, dive in and have a conversation about so we understand the scenario. But it sounds like a general positive thing that we would just need a little bit more info. So congrats on that, by the way. That's true.
Yeah, nice job. Applications run through February 17th. When in doubt, fill it out, tinyseed.com/apply. Alex and Tracy, y'all did a great job. We made it. We answered all the questions.
If you have more questions, send an email to hello@tinyseed.com. You'll probably land in Alex's inbox and he'll get back to you ASAP.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to let you two go. Thanks for joining me today.
Bye.
And I am going to say that if you're curious and you want to hear what it's really like to go through TinySeed from a founder's perspective, make sure you check out the video on this very YouTube channel with Harris Kenny from Outbound Sync. You can find the link in the description for this very video you're watching, or you can search Harris Kenny, Outbound Sync in the description, or I'm sorry, on this channel. It's a really good representation of what Harris got out of the program. So with that, thanks so much for joining us once again. Look forward to seeing all your applications over the next couple weeks and hope to have some conversations with many of you. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.